somewhere warm, to a beach in South Australia on a summer evening in 1948. The sky is darkening over the ocean. The sand is still warm from the day. People are walking along the shore the way people do on warm evenings, slowly, without any particular destination. And there, propped against a concrete seawall, is a man. He is well dressed, a suit, polished shoes, legs outstretched, feet crossed, as though he has simply sat down to rest and watch the water. People notice him as they pass. He seems odd, a suit on a beach on a warm night, but he doesn't seem distressed, just still. One witness notices him raise his arm as if trying to smoke a cigarette, then let it fall back to his side. The next morning, on December 1st, 1948, he is found dead. No identification, no wallet, every clothing label cut from his garments, a face no one recognized, teeth like no dental records on file, a physique that pathologists described as remarkable, the calves of the dancer, they said, the hands of someone who did not do heavy manual labor. And tucked deep inside a secret pocket in his trousers, so small and hidden it was missed by the first examiners, a tightly rolled scrap of paper. On it, 2 words, Tamam should. In Persian, it means it is finished. This is the story of the Somerton man, one of the most enduring mysteries in the history of Australia. A story with a secret code, a rare book of poetry, a woman who knew more than she said, and a dead man whose name the world debated for more than 70 years. It has clues that read like a spy novel, and at its heart, a very human mystery. Let me take you back to the evening of November 30th, 1948. Somerton Beach is a seaside suburb just south of Adelaide, the capital of South Australia. It's a beautiful stretch of coast, the kind of place families go on weekends, where couples take evening walks, where the light on the water in summer is golden and long. At around 7 in the evening, a jeweler named John Lyons and his wife were taking their regular evening stroll along the beach. They noticed the man propped against the seawall, well dressed, oddly still. He appeared to raise one arm as they passed. They assumed he was drunk or sleeping and walked on. Half an hour later, another couple passed by. The man was in exactly the same position. They too noticed the mosquitoes hovering around his face. He didn't wave them away. They assumed he was very drunk and moved on. The next morning, November 30th, becoming December 1st, 2 people on horseback came along the beach in the early light and went closer to look. He hadn't moved. He was still in the same position, legs outstretched, feet crossed, head resting against the seawall. He was dead. Police arrived and began their examination. The man was estimated to be in his early to mid-40s, around 5 feet 11 inches tall, well built, brown hair with some gray at the temples, gray eyes, tanned complexion. His hands, investigators noted, were smooth and well kept. His calf muscles were described as unusually developed, high and firm, more consistent with a dancer or athlete than an average man. He wore a brown suit, a white shirt, a matches and a small comb, a bus ticket, and an unused train ticket. There was no wallet, no identification of any kind, and every single label, every maker's mark, every brand name had been removed from every item of clothing he wore. Every single one. That was not carelessness. That was deliberate. Someone, whether the man himself or someone else, had taken the time to cut out every label that might have revealed where his clothes were made or purchased. The cause of death was unclear. There were no visible wounds, no signs of a struggle, no obvious trauma. 3 medical witnesses would later testify that his death was, in their opinion, not natural. But what had killed him? No one could definitively say. The prevailing suspicion was poisoned, a poison that had left no clear trace. Weeks after the man was found, investigators located a brown suitcase at Adelaide railway station that they believed belonged to him. It had been left in the station's cloakroom on November 30th, the evening of his death. Inside the suitcase were clothes, a dressing gown, slippers, shaving equipment, a small tool used to work with electrical components, a type of orange waxed thread that was unusual, a type later identified as only used in the United States. And sewn on several items of clothing inside the suitcase was a name. Keene, or in some accounts, T. Keene. Investigators searched for anyone named Keene with a connection to the Somerton man. They found nothing conclusive. The name on the clothing and the identity of the dead man seemed to have no clear connection. That name, Keene, would only make sense much, much later. And we'll come to that. The body had been buried with some care. Investigators, aware they were potentially disposing of evidence, had taken the unusual step of embalming the man and having a plaster cast made of his head and torso. He was buried under concrete and dry ground, specifically chosen so he could be exhumed if necessary. And then, months after the body was found, a second examination of his clothing turned up something that had been missed entirely. Sewn inside his trouser pocket was a small secondary pocket, a fob pocket, the kind once used to hold a watch. It was tiny, easily overlooked. Inside it, tightly rolled up, was a small scrap of paper. The paper was unfolded. On it, printed in an elaborate, distinctive script, were 2 words. Tamam Shud. A local police reporter named Frank Kennedy recognized the phrase. He called police and suggested they consult a Persian poetry collection called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a 12th century work that had become popular in Australia during the wartime years. It was a book about living fully, regretting nothing, facing the end with acceptance. The phrase Tamansham appears at the very end of the Rubaiyat. It is finished. Police appealed to the public. Had anyone recently lost or discarded a copy of the Rubaiyat with its final page torn out? After some time, a man came forward. He wished to remain anonymous. He said that on the evening of November 30th, the same night the Somerton man had died, he had found a copy of the Rubaiyat discarded in his unlocked car parked in Glenelg, the suburb just north should were missing. The scrap of paper from the dead man's pocket was brought to the book. It matched perfectly. But the book had more to reveal. On the inside back cover, in faint indentations, as though written with a pen that had passed through from another page, investigators found writing. There was a phone number, unlisted, and below it a series of capital letters, 5 lines of them arranged like a code or a cipher. Those letters have been deciphered. Not by police in 1949, not by intelligence agencies, not by amateur codebreakers across decades of attempts, not in more than 75 years. The unlisted phone number led investigators to a woman. She lived in Glenelg, the suburb where the book had been found in the anonymous man's car. She was a young nursing student at the time. Investigators have referred to her over the years by various pseudonyms. She is most commonly known as Justin or as Jessica Thompson. When police showed her a plaster bust of the dead man, her reaction was noted as striking. She appeared visibly shaken. She seemed to recognize him. And yet, she said she did not know who he was. After some questioning, she admitted one thing. During the war, she had given a copy of the Rubaiyat to a man she had known. She gave investigators his name, Alfred Boxall. Police were certain they had their answer. The dead man must be Alfred. The book had been Justin's gift to him. The case was nearly solved. They tracked down Alfred. Alfred was alive and well in Sydney, and his copy of the Rubaiyat, the one Justin had given him, had its final page completely intact. 2 copies, 2 women, or one woman who had given out 2 copies. The identity of the dead man remained a mystery, and Jessica Thompson, said nothing more. She gave no further explanation for her phone number in the book. She offered no account of who she thought the man might be. She maintained her silence for the rest of her life. Jessica Thompson died in 2007. Her daughter Kate has said in interviews since her mother's death that her mother once made a reference to knowing exactly who the Somerton man was, but would not say more. Her family believes she may have been fluent in Russian, though she never explained when or how she learned it. They believe she was having an affair with the dead man, and they believe she took what she knew to her grave. Let me tell you more about those letters on the back of the book. There were 5 lines of capital letters with 1 line crossed out. They read in the version most commonly reproduced: WRGOABABD MLIAOI WTMTSTMBB IANPAANETP, and finally MLIABOAIAQC. They look at first glance like an encrypted message, and investigators at the time certainly thought so. They sent the code to intelligence agencies for analysis. In the Cold War climate of 1949, a mysterious dead man with a hidden note and a possible link to a woman who may have spoken Russian seemed very significant. Intelligence analysts could not crack it. Over the following decades, amateur and initials of resources or the opening letters of lines of poetry. Because, as it turns out, the man may have liked to bet on horses, and he may have been a lover of poetry. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. For more than 70 years, the Somerton man generated theories in abundance. The most dramatic and the one that captivated the most people was espionage. The Cold War had just begun. Adelaide was not far from the Woomera rocket range, a significant military testing facility. The dead man had removed all identifying labels from his clothing. He had a possible connection to a woman who may have spoken Russian. He died of what appeared to be an undetectable poison. He had a coded message hidden in a rare book. For intelligence theorists, every detail pointed the same direction. This man was a spy. He was either killed by enemy agents or he died by his own hand, having completed or failed his mission. Tamam shud, it is finished. It is a compelling theory, and it has never been entirely ruled out. Other theories were more personal. A jilted lover, poisoned by a woman who had come to find a man who had traveled to Adelaide specifically to see Jessica Thompson, the nurse with the enlisted number, and died either by his own hand in despair or by hers. Some researchers pointed to the physical description, the dancer's calves, the careful grooming, the smooth hands, and suggested a ballet dancer, an actor, a man of the theater. Others noted a witness uncovered years later by a retired detective working the cold case who claimed to have seen one man carrying another on his shoulder on the beach on the night of November 30th. If that account is accurate, someone brought him to that beach. In 2009, a professor of biomedical engineering at the University of Adelaide named Derek Abbott became fascinated with the case. He began applying modern techniques to it: dental analysis, physical comparison, eventually DNA. And in a detail that is frankly stranger than fiction, during his research, Abbott met and eventually married Rachel Egan, the granddaughter of Jessica Thompson, the woman whose phone number was in the book. He married into the mystery. When the Somerton man's body was exhumed in 2021, Abbott's team had already been working with strands of hair found embedded in the plaster death mask, hair that had sat there undisturbed for more than 70 years. Using forensic genetic genealogy, the same technology that identified the Golden State Killer, Abbott and American genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick built a family tree of around 4,000 people from the DNA profile. And in July 2022, they announced their conclusion. The Somerton man, they believe, was a man named Carl Webb, sometimes called Charles, born on November 16, 1905, in Footscray, a suburb of Melbourne. He was an electrical engineer and instrument maker. He had married a woman named Dorothy Jean Robertson in 1941. By April 1947, a year and a half before the body on the beach, he had left her. Dorothy subsequently moved to Butte, South Australia, a town about 90 miles northeast of Adelaide. Abbott's theory: Carl Webb may have traveled to South Australia looking for his estranged wife or looking for something else entirely. Carl Webb's sister, Freda, had married a man named Thomas Keane. T. Keane, the name found on the clothing in the suitcase. sources. The coded letters on the back of the book may not have been a spy cipher at all. They may have been horse racing notes or abbreviated lines of verse. And Abbott and Fitzpatrick believe he died not as a spy or a murder victim, but as a deeply troubled man. He had lost 4 close family members. In the space of 7 years, his marriage had collapsed. He had vanished from the historical record in April of 1947 and left no trace until December 1948. They believe he died by suicide, that he came to that beach, settled himself against the sea, while with his feet crossed and swallowed something that could not be traced. To Mom should. It is finished. Now, I want to be careful here. Abbott and Fitzpatrick's identification of Carl Webb has not been officially verified by South Australian police. As of the time of this recording, authorities have said they are cautiously optimistic that the findings may represent a breakthrough, but have not confirmed the identification. And even if Carl Webb is confirmed as the Somerton man, the mystery is not entirely solved. We still don't know for certain how he died. We still don't know the cause of death. The substance that killed him, if it was poison, has never been definitively identified. We still don't know the full story of his connection to Jessica Thompson, or whether there even was one. The coded letters on the back of the book have never been deciphered and may never be. And there are smaller mysteries still. The witness who saw one man carrying another, the anonymous man who found the book in his car, the flowers left on the Somerton man's grave at odd intervals by an unknown hand for years after his burial. Someone visited that grave for years. The story of the Somerton man has inspired books, documentaries, podcasts, academic papers, and decades of amateur investigation. People have devoted years of their lives to this case, not because it involves violence or horror, but because of something more quietly haunting. A man alone on a beach, well dressed, still, watching the ocean. If Carl Webb is indeed the Somerton man and the evidence is compelling, then he was not a spy, not a romantic mystery, not a thriller. He was a man in his early 40s who had lost too many people, lost his marriage, and perhaps traveled across the country with no intention of coming back. He brought a book of Persian poetry with him, a book about living life to the fullest and have no regrets when it ends. He tore out the last page. He rolled it up small enough to hide. And then he sat down on the sand on a warm summer evening and watched the waves until everything grew still. To Mom should. It is finished. Thank you for spending this time with me tonight. The Somerton man is one of the most fascinating cases to sit with, not because it's frightening, but because it's so deeply, quietly human. A man, a beach, a mystery that took the world 75 years to begin to answer. I hope wherever you are tonight, you are warm. I hope the people you love are close.